Good evening, my friends. I hope this message reaches you in a peaceful moment wherever you are tonight, and I want to thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. The world is moving fast, technology even faster. And what is happening now in Silicon Valley deserves not just your attention, but your full focus. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the calm surface of tech news, something powerful is beginning to rise. The artificial intelligence landscape is no longer a quiet horizon. Tonight, it feels like a drumline of distant thunder rolling from San Francisco to Mountain View. And standing right inside that storm are two giants, Google and OpenAI, taking steps so bold, so unexpected, that they may reshape the information map of the entire internet. They made those steps in recent days, in the quiet corridors of corporate power, a place where decisions, for the first time in a long time, whispered a message that carried like a shockwave across the technology world. We will control our own destiny. But here is where the story becomes even more intriguing. Sam Altman's OpenAI was not the center of traditional search, yet his influence, his push for AI-first information access, hung in the air like a silent signature. Something new is forming in the search engine wars, something that no tech capital expected. A different kind of competition, a different kind of future. And before we move any deeper, I will ask you to stay close, because what you are about to hear may genuinely change the way you understand Google, OpenAI, and the forces shaping the digital realm. If you have not subscribed yet, gently consider doing so. This journey is about to get intense, and I do not want you to miss a single turn. The turning point came quietly, almost gently, wrapped in technical language, but carrying the weight of a new era. When Google's engineers implemented blocks against OpenAI's search crawler, they were not just executing another routine security update. They were carrying a message, an unmistakable one, from the depths of Google's strategic command to OpenAI's leadership. A message that said, in plain and unmistakable terms, Google is ready to fight for something bigger. From the moment those blocks went live, there was a sense that history was leaning forward, listening. The technical implementation was more than defensive. It was the kind of move made not against a minor irritant, but against an existential threat. And this mattered because in Silicon Valley, actions are often as powerful as press releases. The force Google deployed against OpenAI hinted at a competition deeper than market share battles. It hinted at a war for the future of human knowledge access. The confrontation between these two giants takes place not in courtrooms or conference halls, but in lines of code, in data centers, humming across the American West. Google, the company that processes 8 billion searches daily, found itself facing something it had not encountered in over 2 decades, a genuine challenger. Not from Microsoft, not from Amazon, but from a research laboratory turned commercial powerhouse that had convinced over 200 million people weekly that there was a better way to find information. For many observers, it felt like the first real challenge to Google's search empire, a declaration that the technology industry would no longer accept one company's dominance over humanity's access to information. Inside the virtual battle space, the tone was strategic, calculated, and quietly intense. Google's decision carried clarity. Google and OpenAI faced the same opportunity: artificial intelligence supremacy, user loyalty, the future of digital advertising. But only one could dominate. The decision carried an unspoken truth. If we let them rise unchecked, we fall together. But spoken differently through technical barriers, Google framed it as protecting its infrastructure. Yet the subtext was clear. OpenAI represented not just competition, but an entirely different philosophy of information access, one that threatened everything Google had built over 25 years. OpenAI received the blocking with measured response and quiet confidence. OpenAI has endured years of skepticism, funding challenges, ethical debates, and strategic pressure from established tech giants. Yet in this challenging landscape, its ChatGPT search stood strong, refusing to retreat. OpenAI's technology remains transformative, Sam Altman essentially communicated, calling their approach not just innovative, but necessary. a direction whose intelligence capabilities and conversational interface have begun reshaping user expectations. Here, the influence of artificial intelligence's evolution subtly entered the room, even without formal announcement. The movement toward AI-first interfaces has fueled a broader shift, one that insists the future must be more intuitive than link-based search. The transformation triggered makes the Google-OpenAI confrontation not only commercially logical, but technologically inevitable. Across tech news platforms, commentators noted that the industry's center of gravity was slowly drifting away from traditional search engines and toward conversational AI systems. The search engine war itself symbolized this ideological shift. It represented the collision of two eras, bringing together traditional algorithmic search, advertising-based business models, link-ranked results, and the emerging AI paradigm. OpenAI arrived not with symbolic gestures, but with real technological weight. The integration of GPT-4 architecture, partnership with news publishers, real-time web crawling capabilities, and citation-backed responses. Their presence showed OpenAI was not challenging Google from the periphery. It was stepping inside Google's core territory with superior technology for certain use cases. But beneath the technology demonstrations, beneath the user interface comparisons and market analysis, something deeper moved. Google and OpenAI quietly understood that their battles were no longer about search alone. They would compete for artificial intelligence dominance, for talent acquisition and machine learning, for partnership deals with content creators, for regulatory favor as AI governance frameworks emerged, for the very definition of how humans would access information in the coming decades. This was not positioning. This was architecture, muscle and bone for a new technological order. Then came the moment that sent a shockwave across industry circles watching from the outside. Google acknowledged through its blocking action that OpenAI's approach was threatening enough to require defensive measures. That single admission broke from the traditional narrative of Google's invincibility. It signaled that technology's most dominant search company was now willing to treat an AI research lab as a peer-level threat, not a distant competitor. At this midpoint, allow me to leave you with a thought, one that echoes far beyond Mountain View. If these two technological forces truly commit their full capabilities to this competition, what does that mean for the users who once trusted Google as the neutral organizer of the world's information? Think about that as we continue, and as we move into the next chapter, the emotional peak of this unfolding technological war. I want to know something simple, something human. Where are you watching from? The atmosphere in Silicon Valley shifted the moment the implications became clear. Google and OpenAI will no longer operate in separate technological spheres. It was as if a curtain had lifted, revealing a completely different stage, one where big tech no longer assumed permanent dominance. One where an AI-first company stepped forward to challenge the fundamental business model of internet search. For decades, analysts described Google's search monopoly as unassailable, stable, and permanent. But in that instant, something in the narrative snapped. A new competitive reality began to form, bold and unapologetic inside the technology industry's power centers. The reaction was electric. Technology investors exchanged analyses that carried both excitement and concern. Industry observers murmured as if witnessing the first spark of a long-awaited transformation. Even tech news outlets, often cautious in tone, ran headlines suggesting a paradigm shift. Google versus OpenAI signals the future of search. It was a message not only to the industry, but to every company with long-standing assumptions about technological permanence. Meanwhile, among everyday users, the reaction was visceral. Younger internet users, gathered in online forums, nodded quietly, as if affirming an instinct they had buried for years that Google search had become cluttered, ad-heavy, and less useful. Technology enthusiasts celebrated with interest, saying that competition was returning to a space that had grown stagnant. The sentiment echoed across social platforms as well, where early adopters of ChatGPT search interpreted the Google blocking as proof that the old guard felt genuinely threatened. But the emotional peak was not the public celebration. It came in private, almost tense discussions between technology strategists behind closed doors. There, Google and industry analysts reviewed user behavior data showing younger demographics increasingly bypassing traditional search for AI chat interfaces, preferring conversational answers over linked lists. The trend was real, immediate, and accelerating. Both the defenders of traditional search and advocates of AI-first approaches understood that unless they adapted their strategies, user preferences, interface design, business model innovation, the technology landscape would transform, regardless of corporate resistance. What shocked observers most was Google's willingness to take visible defensive action. Historically, Google operated with such dominance that competitors rarely warranted public acknowledgement. But here, Mountain View recognized a truth it rarely admitted. The AI revolution, consuming OpenAI's mindshare, would eventually reshape its own user base. And so Google responded firmly, defensively, and with a sense of competitive urgency that marked a turning point in technology industry dynamics. Industry reactions were swift and revealing. In venture capital circles, investors watched with a mix of opportunity sensing and portfolio concern. Silicon Valley has long considered Google a foundational investment, one of the few technology companies with the user base, data advantage, and technical talent to dominate its category indefinitely. A Google that faces genuine AI-driven competition, especially from a conversational interface, inevitably alters investment calculations. One analyst report noted, if search behavior fundamentally shifts toward AI chat, the entire digital advertising ecosystem must restructure. The shift was not catastrophic, but it was unmistakably transformative. Among Microsoft's leadership, the reaction carried quiet satisfaction. Microsoft, through its partnership with OpenAI and integration into Bing, had already positioned itself in this new paradigm. What troubled Google's leadership further was that this competitive threat emerged not from traditional rivals, but from a new category of company, one built around AI from inception, rather than retrofitting it onto existing infrastructure. The challenge was not just technological, but philosophical, and that made it harder to counter. Meanwhile, advertisers observed with strategic concern. The digital advertising industry depends fundamentally on search behavior, remaining link-based and ad-friendly. An AI chat interface that provides direct answers, reduces ad inventory, lowers click-through rates, and challenges the entire economic model that funds free internet services. For the advertising world, the rise of ChatGPT search was not innovation, it was disruption of their revenue foundations. But perhaps the most profound reaction came from ordinary internet users across demographics, those who have lived with Google Search as their primary information gateway for 2 decades. Students who struggled through ad-cluttered results, researchers forced to dig through SEO-optimized content farms, parents seeking straightforward health information. For them, ChatGPT search was not theory. It was relief. A suggestion that information access might finally prioritize clarity over monetization. Their voices carried hope, but also caution. Hope that AI would improve search quality. Caution that corporate competition might limit rather than expand their options. And here is where the story tightens, where tension sharpens. Because as Google and OpenAI strengthen their competitive positions, the technology industry notices, investment patterns shift, talent migrations accelerate, regulatory attention intensifies. Something is moving in the corporate shadows. An adaptation, a counter-strategy, perhaps even a fundamental rethinking of what search means. Before we step into the consequences of this technological war, the user impact, the business tremors, the risks no one wants to acknowledge, I want to leave you with a question that may unsettle you. If the world's information gatekeeper feels threatened enough to block competitors, what might they do next to protect their empire? And what does that mean for your access to truth?